So, very short intro, we're gonna get into it real quick. Surprisingly, I enjoyed almost every movie I saw this year, which made them extremely hard to rank. Even looking at the ranking that I've decided on for this video, I'm having second thoughts. I want to move this around, I want to move that around. So don't take this order too seriously. Nearly every movie I have rated a 7 out of 10. That's why sometimes the I had fun movies are ranked higher than technical masterpiece movies. But really, I would just say it was a really good year for movies.
Here, the punishment for any crime committed is death.
What did you say?
We're starting off with the worst at number 23. This was the only 2023 film that I saw that I disliked. And I really disliked this one. It's in the rich people doing exclusive activities and being shitty cinematic universe. While I found a few things I liked about the menu, check out my 2022 review, and Triangle Sadness had Marxist Woody Harrelson, I found absolutely nothing I enjoyed in Infinity Pool. The characters are all unlikable and rather bland. The story failed to keep my interest, and as it dragged on, I realized there was nothing I liked about this film. Even the concept started to feel ridiculous. Also, this movie's extremely dark, as in I can't see shit. I seem to be in the minority for disliking this film, and that's really all I have to say.
Your mother, she's awaiting your rescue. I'll be your guide.
It feels like a crime to rank a Miyazaki film so low. Don't get me wrong, there are many things I loved about it. The score was so good. The animation was nice, even if the birds gave me the heebie-jeebies. The people and the environment, however, looked good. The majority of Miyazaki's work hasn't impacted me the way it has impacted most people, so although this film didn't mean much to me, that's not to say it's without meaning. Grief is displayed excellently, though I found myself comparing it to Suzume, which I saw in theaters earlier in the year, and which also handled grief. If Suzume wasn't technically a 2022 movie, it would be ranked number 1 in this video. Suzume's depiction and the overall film were much more in my taste. Once Mahito left his world, my enjoyment of The Boy and the Heron started to decrease. As time went on, things seemed more convoluted. I went from, I have no idea what's happening, but that's okay, to, I have no idea what's happening, and it's kind of overwhelming to the point where I'm beginning to tune things out. I think once the Parakeet King entered, that was it for me. I no longer could follow what I was watching. Even still, there were great moments in the latter parts of the film, things that were so visually beautiful, very touching, very funny. I had no idea what to expect when going in, but within the first few minutes, I thought the story would have similarities to Grave with the Fireflies, the themes of war and loss. Those themes are still there, but there's a lot more going on, things that at the moment I cannot decipher. It became almost exhausting trying to keep track of everything. That being said, I really did love the beginning. The opening scene, the arrival at the new estate, the mystery of the tower, the odd heron. I think the part that impacted me most was when Mahito takes the rock and smashes it against his head. I felt that. I understood that. There's a lot of other fantastic moments, but I think it's time to wrap this one up. My final note is that I was absolutely flabbergasted to see Robert Pattinson in the credits for the dub. Bro went absolutely wild.
We all know Carrie's my favorite, then Kev, then David, then Mike. But the rankings can always change.
First of all, overall, I liked it. And any criticism I have of the movie reflects on the movie, not the story it's telling. There's a lot of great things about it. I really liked the wrestling scenes and montages and wish there would have been more of those. The emotional scenes were really good, and that ending hit me like a train. But something prevented me from becoming fully engaged in the movie. The dialogue felt off at times, but as the story is about real people, it's possible that's just how they spoke, but it feels like bad writing. There were scenes where the acting seemed bad, but I know all of these actors are good, so I'm chalking it up to the unnatural speech. I think a rewrite on the dialogue-heavy scenes could have led to the actors to be used to their full potential. I think it's also because of the dialogue that some emotional moments felt they were lacking. There are a lot of emotional moments that feel so well done, but there are other times where things just fell flat. Additionally, just as the emotion was coming into fruition, the scene would change and those feelings would dissipate for me as an audience member, when I think the film could have benefited by holding on longer. Which leads me to the next issue, pacing. The film slowed down when it should have sped up, and sped up when it should have slowed down. The beginning in particular often felt slow, while the second half sped through the tragedies a little too quickly for my liking. I would have liked to spend more time with these brothers to see a little more about how each one was dealing with the grief and loss. And finding out a whole other brother wasn't included in this film is very sad. For those reasons, I think the story would have benefited more from a mini-series. On to some more positives. Some of the standout scenes were Kevin talking to David in the bathroom during the wedding, when the brothers and Pam defy their parents to sneak out, and the afterlife scene. A few final thoughts. I liked the soundtrack. Zac Efron's haircut was driving me mad. And Pam's wedding attire is one of the prettiest I've ever seen on screen.
Hi. Mind if I touch your wiener?
What?
Your dog.
I liked this one. It's got a high watchability to it. It had some funny moments and some fun scenes. The characters were simultaneously likable and unlikable, which was odd, because all of them came across as both likable and unlikable. Typically it's one or the other. There's a few really cringy scenes, particularly the restaurant scene and the house party scene. Those were kind of rough to get through. It's just not my thing. Also, there's the overall idea of the parents of a recent high school graduate encouraging a 30-year-old woman to seduce their son. That is acknowledged as strange within the movie, but the actors' age difference is just so noticeable and obvious, and it's a little odd to watch them going back and forth trying to seduce and sleep with each other. I feel like that's why his age was maybe made to be 19 instead of 18, the more common age of a recent high school graduate, but it doesn't make a huge difference. He's still pretty young. Still a pretty big age gap. There's still a big power imbalance. That being said, I did like the ending. It was very nice, and I'm glad the writers chose to end it how they did.
You went to the above world.
A man was drowning. I had to save him.
This obsession with humans has to stop.
I have not been a fan of Disney's recent work. I've had issues with their politics surrounding my fellow LGBTQ plus folk and their money-hungry soulless live-action adaptations of their animated classics. In fact, I hadn't seen any since Beauty and the Beast. I decided that would be the last. I wasn't going to go see The Little Mermaid, but my mom wanted to see it, so I went for her. And honestly, I was surprised. It's still a Disney live-action remake, there's no doubt about that, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I had expected to. It's no Cinderella, but it certainly beats a lot of the other live-action remakes. I credit most of this to Halle Bailey. Halle Bailey is beautiful. She has a beautiful voice, and the girl has abs. Her Ariel is so sweet and so wholesome. She carried this movie. I'm not a fan of the original Eric. I think he's a dumbass and an asshole, and I don't get those vibes here. Not only that, but he's a more well-rounded character in my opinion. He's so much more likable here. I guess he was hypnotized or under Ursula's curse in the original, which in all my years of viewing I never caught on to. Here though, it's obvious. They make it really clear what's going on. Possibly a little too clear. Like, I'm not that dumb. This movie certainly felt like it was holding my hand at times, but I am glad they explained what I saw to be a flaw in the original. I'm still deciding if the curse causing Ariel to forget about the kiss was a good choice. Although it seems odd at first, I think it was a fair decision. I think it upped the stakes for sure, but it simultaneously made their relationship less of a challenge. This allowed for less pursuit and for the relationship to be more fun and wholesome and genuine in a natural sort of way. Other changes are absolutely pointless. Like making Triton and Ursula brother and sister. What does that add? Absolutely nothing. I also didn't care for the new songs, and one was downright awful. You know which one I'm talking about. The old songs were still good though. Some of the jokes were truly awful. They would have been outdated 10 years ago and will not age well because they've never been good. I'm looking at you, Scuttle. Nevertheless, the movie did get a few good laughs out of me, mostly the physical comedy. Melissa McCarthy was fine. Good even. But I wish they would have stuck to their origins and had a drag queen play Ursula. Though, of course, that would never happen because phobic. Have you seen Our Flag Means Death, Season 2? Wee John as Calypso? That's my Ursula. Javier Bardem. What are you doing here, bro? He's an amazing actor. I know he's capable of so much more, but damn, he was so lifeless here. Though I do appreciate seeing him as a merman. That was kind of hot. I like the second part of this movie much better than the former, which was true to Disney live-action fashion, a drab rehashing of the original. I liked it better for several reasons, particularly that is where the story positively drifts from the original in some aspects, but also because there was less CGI. God damn, there was so much CGI. And it was ugly, too. In many ways, these live-action remakes remind me of stage plays, except the stage is a green screen. With Disney being as wealthy as they are, you think they could put some money into some quality effects, and maybe some quality costumes, too. They looked kind of cheap. Not ugly, just very cheap. On a more positive ending note, I love the mermaid designs and love the variation rather than the original, which was very copy-paste. Though it does raise some questions. Like, why do some have scales on their arms and others don't? Why do some look like they have tops on while others look like that's just part of their body? Are there multiple species of merperson? Is it just genetics? Or is it just bad character design? But overall, I liked it and I had a fun time watching it.
만약에 네가 한국을 떠나지 않았다면 내가 널 찾았을까?
This movie just looks beautiful. The soundtrack is so good. Like Before Sunset, this movie asks, what if? But whereas Jessie and Celine easily bounce off of one another, the performances and dialogue in past lives are stiffer. There's a disconnect between our star-crossed lovers, and for me, that becomes the movie's biggest failure. There's absolutely no chemistry, which wouldn't matter so much if the whole story didn't depend so much on it. Also, we're supposed to believe these actors are college age at one point, as in just graduated high school, which made it impossible for me to be invested in the middle portion where they find each other online and begin video chatting. The actors are in their early 40s as of this year, but I would have guessed they were in their mid-30s. Anyway, the point is, I couldn't make myself believe they were 20, which was very distracting. But yes, the disconnect. It's within the story, with Hae-sung having an image of what Nora is like based on who she used to be, which doesn't fully reflect who she has become. She, on the other hand, has been in a relationship for some time and has disconnect between her world and the one she spent her childhood in, and which is the one he still lives in. While the lack of chemistry between the actors would ideally feed into the previously mentioned conflicts of interest, the idea that, yes, they may have belonged to each other once, but they are completely different people now and have grown in different directions, the movie seems to say, no, they are star-crossed lovers. It's a profound feeling and a universal story, but it doesn't quite land with the stiffness of their interactions. On paper, I think the story would have been much more effective. And I think excuses can be made for that stiffness, like they haven't seen each other in decades. They've really changed since they were kids. They have these ideas of each other that just aren't true. And that is part of the story. That's definitely worked in there. But I feel like there's so much emphasis on they could have something right now when they don't have anything right now. Director Celine Song said that the actors who played the two leads as children were screen tested for chemistry. The adults, however, were not. It certainly shows. But does this add something to the story? I think in a way it does. My cynical self wants to cling on to the part where some things are not meant to be, that our ideas of people are not always right, especially when time has passed. But I think given the themes more heavily portrayed, there should have been something there. The story slowly unravels, and I can't stress how beautiful the atmosphere of this film is. I love the earliest scenes when Nora and Hae-sung are children. Some other standout scenes were Hae-sung and his friends in Korea, the conversations between Arthur and Nora about their relationship, and Arthur doing his best to be friendly and connect with Hae-sung, but feeling the weight of both the language barrier and knowing how Hae-sung feels about his wife. And despite the lack of chemistry between actors Greta Lee and Tae Yoo, the final few scenes with them sitting at the bar speaking about what could have been, and that final scene when Hae-sung leaves and Nora breaks down, Arthur coming out to comfort her, are just amazing. Really amazing.
Something to drink?
Whiskey, beer, wine?
Yep, we got all those. Which one?
Whiskey, beer, and wine.
Okay, hear me out. It has a rough start, but it gets better as it goes on, particularly in the second half. I found myself laughing on multiple occasions, which is good considering this is a comedy. However, there was some of that mediocre Taika Waititi humor where I know I'm supposed to laugh, but I don't really know if I should because it really wasn't that funny. In fact, it wasn't funny at all, but that almost makes it deserve a wheeze of laughter because of how it's obviously supposed to be funny, and maybe that makes it funny? That's not to say Taika Waititi isn't funny. I've enjoyed a lot of Taika Waititi projects and have found them all to be funny. Not every joke lands, but the hits and misses even out, and the other elements of the story make up for any bad jokes. But some of the humor in Next Cool Wins really seems to underestimate the intelligence of the audience. But there was some really good humor as well. There's a guy with a stab wound after the match, and he's in the background in several shots, but absolutely nothing is said about it. More of that was needed. I'm not all for show don't tell, but telling all the time, especially when it comes to humor, is not the way to go about it. Even if it was funny the first time, you repeating it and explaining it really drives any humor away from it. Let the audience pick up on things. Recognizing a handful of cast members from other Taika Waititi projects was cool. Dave Fane, I know nothing about you, but I adore you. While all of you were baby-girling Ed, I was baby-girling Fang. And now for the elephant in the room. I'm not trans. I am a part of the LGBTQ+ community though, and I have trans friends and acquaintances. So no, I am not an authority on this issue, but I do have some familiarity with it. Obviously, the opinions of trans people are going to be more valuable and hold more weight than mine, but I do have a lot to say about it. I think the movie treats Rongin's behavior as an issue and has him grow. I don't think dead-naming Jaya is treated as comedic, nor him asking what she has downstairs. It's shown to be disrespectful, and while it is not great, it's only a fraction of the treatment that trans people face all the time. All of the other characters adore Jaya and treat her with love and respect, so I think it is the character that is transphobic rather than the film itself. But trans people, please weigh in. And now for what I would say is really my only issue with the film. I think we could have seen a little less of Rongan and more of the people in American Samoa. I wonder if this movie was framed like this, framing the American Samoans as oddities from Rongan's point of view to appeal to larger white Western audiences. This isn't to say his story isn't important, but I think a little less focus on him and a little more focus on them would have done wonders. I think that's also why Jaya's story is set up like it is. Rongan represents the audience, though I don't think he's good representation. As he's othering the American Samoans, the film sort of reaches out to the audience and says, "We know all you racist, xenophobic, and transphobic people are watching. Let us cater to you and show you how you should be, rather than targeting the right people in the first place." The primary focus of the story should have been Jaya. It takes a moment for her to become a main character, but she still takes a backseat to Rongan. The real-life Jaya has talked about potentially writing a book about her experiences, and I would love to read that. Her story deserves more attention. But to end this portion on a positive note, Taika Waititi projects always seem to have good music. This is no exception. The music really works with the film. And there's uplifting parts and an uplifting ending, and I liked it. I went in thinking I wouldn't, and thus was trying to find issues, but still I came out enjoying it. It was mediocre, but on the good side of mediocre. A masterpiece it is certainly not, but it's not the trash people are treating it as.
You have been hiding here all this time.
Who are you talking to?
I had a lot of fun with this one. Maybe not a ton of fun. I was a little critical. I chose not to see Murder on the Orient Express, for I didn't really care for the book, nor Death on the Nile, as television's Poirot already made the perfect adaptation. Also, how do you cast even pre-cannibalism reveal Armie Hammer as Simon Doyle? That's just bad casting. That, and I also just didn't think those movies looked all that great. Once again, I only saw this because my mom wanted to see it, so thank you, Mom, because I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. I didn't read Halloween Party, so I think that helped in a sense because I would have been critically comparing it. And television Poirot will always be my Poirot, but I don't think Kenneth Branagh did a bad job. I love a nice, easy watch of a cozy murder mystery, and A Haunting in Venice delivered. A masterpiece, certainly not, but it was a fun watch. It was pretty solid all the way around. I guessed the killer early, which I was proud of, although it was a bit obvious. I also must say I guessed what was happening with the hallucinations as soon as they began. All those years of replaying Ghost of Thornton Hall really paid off. But I still enjoyed it. It was fit with a little tension, and I never grew bored of analyzing Kenneth Branagh's mustache. One flaw, purely by me, was that I spent most of the film thinking, this actor looks familiar. Their voice sounds so familiar. About 4 people. Actually 5. I kept thinking, is that Tina Fey? Yeah, that's Tina Fey. Is it though? Is that really Tina Fey? Yeah, that's definitely her. In the end though, of the other 4, turns out I recognized none of them. They just reminded me of other actors. Except for Jamie Dornan, who I do know and somehow did not recognize with a mustache. And for that, I am incredibly embarrassed.
You're not that scary. You're really not. You're pretty terrifying. Can you turn it around just while I finish this? Thank you.
My biggest character flaw is that I would drop everything for Lakeith Stanfield. I have loved him for years, ever since I saw him in Sorry to Bother You. He's just incredible. He's the main reason I wanted to watch this movie, and by God, Lakeith Stanfield, you did not disappoint. So, this movie. It's no The Haunted Mansion 2003 with Eddie Murphy. That movie is a masterpiece. This movie has issues. It has parts worse than anything in A Haunting in Venice, but its better parts were also better than anything in A Haunting in Venice. Plus, I had more fun. Plus, Lakeith Stanfield. In conclusion, I've ranked it higher. So the main actors were almost exclusively great. The side characters, not so much. I really like Lakeith Stanfield, Rosario Dawson, Owen Wilson, and Danny DeVito, so seeing them all in a movie together was pretty cool. Oh, and of course Winona Ryder, although her part was quite small. I'm so glad she was there. Winona forever. Jamie Lee Curtis just felt like she was making a cameo. All I can think of when I see her is her winning Best Supporting Actress at last year's Academy Awards, when my girl Stephanie Hsu did so much more. The emotional performances were really good. I almost cried once. That's the powerful Keith Stanfield. Some of the funny stuff was really funny. Other stuff fell flat, but the mix was fine. I think there was enough good to even out the rougher stuff. But people always give fun movies bad reviews. Like, grow up and learn to enjoy something. Not all movies have to reflect your sad, miserable life. So, now to the actual bad stuff. The first 30 minutes or so were not the greatest. I was sitting in the theater thinking, oh boy, I really wasted that matinee money, huh? It was giving the impression of crappy Disney movie, but it turned around soon enough, at least in my opinion. I don't think I've seen so much consumerism and product placement in my life. So fucking distracting. It's a rarity to have product placement done well, and let me tell you, this was not done well. Every other minute it was Yankee Candle, Amazon, Burger King, Costco, CVS. They even name-dropped Baskin Robbins during a sad scene. What the hell, my guys? Disney, are you really struggling that much for money? I'm going to choose to imagine that they believed no one would see this, so they had to grasp for straws for funding because Big Disney wouldn't shovel out money. Was the purpose of this movie just to promote brands? If so, I am about to be pissed. Some things just didn't make sense. Mainly the why and the how. Maybe I just missed it and I need another watch. But I don't think things were properly explained. The original, which also suffers from harsh reviews, was so much better. Although I do have a lot of nostalgia surrounding it, that movie was on repeat in my household. I'm willing to say that overall, the acting, writing, plots, and effects were superior. If you know me, I love those practical effects, which this version desperately needed more of. Way too much CGI. The skeletons in the mausoleum scene in the 2003 film was one of the best scenes and the most intense. You want to know why? Because the skeletons weren't CGI and green screens weren't used. At least I don't think green screens were used. But the skeletons definitely weren't CGI. This movie could have used something like that. The CGI doesn't look the best in the 2003 film, but then tell me why 20 years later the CGI still looks like crap. There's just more of it. The set design also could have been better. I know this one is more closely based on the ride, which I have never been on, but I could imagine it through certain parts of the movie, which was definitely cool. I can appreciate it more that way, and now I also kind of want to ride it, but I refuse to spend the money to go to Disney. Maybe one day if I become rich. Also, I must say, Gracie was so much worse than in the original. That is one example of the acting and writing that didn't hit. I'm a sucker for sexy Master Gracie pining for his dead fiancé. Give me more. And why is Jared Leto here? You literally could have hired anyone else. But you got Jared Leto? In my haunted mansion? The animation sequence of Crump's backstory was really, really cool though. In conclusion, I love Tater Tot and also Lakeith Stanfield.
Oh my god, you're Orphan Annie!
She's not dead. She ran away. That bitch.
Okay, so short review for this one. This one was so cute. It was funny. Jason Schwartzman was in it portraying the trademark pretentious asshole character he usually does. He was fine. But Awkwafina and Sandra Oh were just perfect. They were both playing against type, which was a fun watch, and they both were great in their roles. I had a good time with this one. It's just a nice, feel-good movie, and with a feel-good ending, and most of the jokes landed surprisingly well. The cards describing what happened after the end of the events of the film were unexpectedly funny, and a nice final touch.
I do believe her as a French prostitute.
Amos.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sex worker.
Thank you.
Theater camp was so much fun. I was never a theater kid, though I did envy their community and their fearlessness, and this film reminded me of the envy I felt. So I had to live vicariously through this story. There are so many great and funny moments. The fighting lessons, the auditions, the audience's shock as the children sing about cocaine. Lots of great one-liners. Amos calling Rebecca Diane Becky Di was way more funny to me than it probably should have been, and I think about it every day. It was very entertaining and full of heart. The only reason it's ranked so low as it is because my expectations were a little different. I thought it would be funny all around, and while much of it is, there's also some downer moments too, which I wasn't in the mood for when I first watched it. The plot goes through a lot of mood swings. I also don't know if the documentary framing added much to the film. I like the style it's shot in, but I think the movie could have maintained the style as its own thing rather than, well, as a mockumentary. I've yet to revisit it, but I have a feeling it will go up in ranking after a rewatch.
Well, we mix these families together, and that estate money flows the right direction. It'll come to us.
I need to start off this review by admitting I have a Leonardo DiCaprio aversion. During Titanic and post-Titanic Leo are not the same person. You can't convince me. I feel like he overacts. Dude tries way too hard. Take a chill pill, my guy. It'll be okay. This isn't your final performance, though maybe it should be. But what I really can't get past is his dating history. Not the women he's dated, but like their ages. 25, take a dive. So keep that in mind with why this movie is ranked possibly lower than it should be. This is a really interesting story, one I had not been aware of, so I'm glad it's getting immortalized and spread to a wide audience in the form of Martin Scorsese film. And although it is a good for sure film, there's just something about it that kept me from appreciating it as much as I feel I should have. I never watched any trailers, but I still managed to have some expectations. I purposely avoided information, just read the letterbox description and saw the overwhelming amount of high reviews. So here are my little critiques and criticisms. It's really fucking long, which is fine. There is nothing wrong with a long movie. There's a lot of movies that I would watch for 1, 2, 3 hours more, but it gets repetitive, so the story feels drawn out at times. I think the pacing would have worked a little better for me if we got the story straight through, from Molly's perspective and the perspective of the other Osage in the community. Then, when we get to the interrogation and courtroom scenes, we start working our way back through the flashbacks. I think that could have maintained some suspense, which there is little of in this movie. I believe that is the intention, as the bad guys are made obvious from the start. I later found out that the book this story was recorded in, that this film is inspired by, was set up this way, so I certainly think it could work. Also, I just wasn't a fan of the inconsistency in the current events versus what we find out later in flashbacks. This might get a little confusing, but try to stay with me. We see X character doing deed A, but we only learn that X character did deed B later. Why not show both up front, or save both for the flashback? Because when deed B is brought up, I am under the impression that X did not do it, as we never saw it. We saw X do all sort of deplorable things. B was not one of them. But it turns out X did do B. Does that make sense? I guess what I'm saying is, why show us most of the puzzle but withhold a few random pieces until the end? And another way of explaining it, I wasn't surprised by the reveal in the sense of what X was capable of, but I was surprised that X was the culprit of this specific deed because we never saw it happen. But we saw most of the other stuff happen. Why not just show us? It doesn't come as a grand shock. It wasn't a gotcha moment despite being set up like one. For those who have seen the film, I'm talking about the house explosion. There also seems to be some inconsistency when it comes to perspectives. At times, Molly would have voiceovers. Voiceovers typically indicate the main character, the protagonist, but that position is clearly occupied by Ernest. I think the perspectives could have been split better to give more attention to Molly's inner feelings and thoughts. We don't see much of her character independent from Ernest aside from scenes of us watching her suffering in an outside to kind of looking in way. I don't know too much about the real Molly, so this may have been intentional, but movie Molly just seemed a little too unaware at times. I'm pretty sure she was aware, but just chose to ignore her instincts and what she clearly knew in favor of believing her husband might still love her. Or perhaps it was to conform to social norms, women's roles. From the beginning, she seems pretty caught up on the misdeeds of Ernest's uncle, Bill Hale, and the injustice her people are facing. Why does she seem to sit by when it should be seemingly obvious what they are doing? Same with many of the Osage characters. They seem to know, but also willingly turn a blind eye. Did I interpret these characters wrong? Were they truly unaware? The impression that I got was that they knew, but that doesn't seem to add up with their actions, or lack thereof. Lily Gladstone was phenomenal, and frankly, I just wanted to see more of her and less of Leo. I also would have liked to see a few more scenes of the Osage people, particularly of Henry and Molly's sisters. I absolutely loved Anna and would have watched an entire film just about her, and I just don't think we got enough of Rita and Minnie. There was one great shot of this guy dancing, and it seems to last way too long despite it being quite interesting and entertaining. I thought to myself, is that just an extra who was having a really great time and captured the attention of the filmmakers? But no, I am 95% positive he's the same character who comes in much, much later, who plays an important part. But we don't see him for the majority of the runtime apart from the lingering dancing scene. What was the point of bringing this up? I don't really know. I'm pretty sure we didn't see him again for at least another hour, so it was just odd. It was just an odd detail. I loved the Martin Scorsese cameo at the end, and I appreciated the use of the live radio show instead of the traditional white text over a black screen to explain the aftermath of the real-life events. That was certainly interesting, and I liked it, but the sound effects were a bit drawn out for my taste because I was just itching to get out of the movie theater seat. So yeah, overall good, just some things weren't quite to my taste.
When they sent me the script, I thought, here is a woman with a lot more to her than I remember from the tabloids.
Major spoilers for this one. I want to start off by saying I'm glad Todd Haynes is getting the recognition he deserves. Velvet Goldmine is my absolute favorite movie, and it has been for many years. I'd love to do a series of videos analyzing all the different aspects of it. But May December offers quite a lot to analyze too. I had a lot of thoughts after watching this one. The three main characters, Elizabeth, Gracie, and Joe, are all complex and sometimes puzzling individuals. As the film goes on, the cracks slowly start coming through for each of them. Elizabeth reflecting Gracie more and more as time goes on was quite interesting to watch. It starts so subtle, and by the end she is fully mirroring her. She has morphed into her, to the best of her knowledge. There was something very unsettling about her dark fascination with Gracie and Joe's relationship. It seems to be harmless curiosity at first, then by the end when she's acting across from the kid playing Joe in the scene where she tries to seduce him, she makes odd comments of sexy and almost feels real. This is, of course, after her very long talk about sex scenes and feeling something for the other person, confusing what is real and what is acting. Gracie's manipulation and nefarious nature come through little details in the story, though of course it is also obvious when looking at her relationship with Joe, which started when he was a child. But we see that she's manipulative with everyone in her life, from telling her daughter that she's so brave for showing her arms, knowing her tone would upset her and she would choose a different dress, to buying her other daughter a scale for her graduation present. And of course, even beyond the grooming, she consistently finds ways to express to Joe how much she hates his hobby. She acts innocent and puts on a facade of kindness, but will dial up her emotions when things don't work out her way, anything to restore her control. Joe is the only character to display positive growth, slowly coming to terms with the realization that he had been groomed by Gracie. He's been stunted for years by the relationship. Him not sitting with the family at the graduation confirms the wedge growing between them as he decides to separate himself from her. The score was very good, and there's so many jaw-dropping scenes from Elizabeth reading the letter where we learn that Gracie did in fact know their relationship was wrong, despite feigning ignorance and innocence for all of these years. And there's the scene where Elizabeth learns she's been played by Gracie, and of course, that last icky film shoot scene.
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Wow, that cinematography. Every shot was so good. This movie looked so cool. The aerial shots of the bathroom? Amazing. The way the light caresses the actors' faces in the club? Beautiful. The set's designed to look like one character is watching another character's flashback like a play performance. Utterly cool. I smiled through most of this. It was so cute and fulfilling. The lead actors, Vivian Oparah and David Johnson, were so good, and I hope to see them in more stuff soon. The supporting cast was good too. The perfect amount of time was spent with each of the side characters. They all felt distinct from one another. And that's it. Short review. This was just so fun and so creative, and I absolutely adored it, and I cannot wait to watch it again.
Did you get the Coke bags out? Yeah, but only 7, and I think I put in 8. Just push, pull, twist it! It's not a puppet, it's my asshole!
I had a good time with this one. It's a raunchy comedy for the girls' gays and theys. Never at any moment was I prepared for what was going to happen next. There was a series of tiny plot twists which drove the story forward. It did, however, utilize a trope that I absolutely hate, which is the best friends who have conflicting personalities get into a fight, go their separate ways, one apologizes, then they're best friends again. I think it's overused and annoying, and it drags the story down and rarely adds anything. And it's always predictable. That I could see coming from nearly the beginning, and I'm mad it proved me right. That's really my biggest complaint though. It was pretty fun. The jokes could be hit or miss, but most were pretty funny. There were very few actual bad jokes. I love Stephanie Hsu. She is an excellent actress. She deserved that Oscar. Also, I absolutely loved Sabrina Wu as Deadeye. They were definitely my favorite character. So sweet. My final note is that I loved the hair, makeup, and costumes. Each character's look was perfect for them.
Mom, where are you guys?
God, I was so tense throughout this whole thing. I expected it to be good, but not as good as Searching, but I think I might like it better. I feel like it improved upon what Searching started. It was much faster paced, looked nicer, and as mentioned, more tense. I love both, though. Missing feels very interactive, despite the audience not being able to make any decisions for the main character, but like Searching, you sort of live through that first-person perspective. You find things out exactly when the character finds things out. You know what they know, which leads to some pretty convincing red herrings, which I will get mad that I fell for every single time. While I wasn't expecting the final reveal of Missing, it sort of came out of left field. While I didn't expect Searching's reveal, you can see the signs on a rewatch. The signs, I think, are a little harder to see in Missing. I still liked it, though, and the unrealistic happy ending. But I do love a happy ending where everyone lives, so I'll take it. I really hope they continue this franchise. I will look forward to every single one.
Mais non, mais je te crois pas.
Je déclenché l'alarme?
Je crois que je suis en train de me faire quitter par texto, Carole. Attends, quitte pas, il m'appelle. Je vais te buter.
I loved this one. I'd like all three women to marry me now, please and thank you. I find their dynamics very interesting, particularly the semi-codependent relationship between Alex and Carol. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it because it feels very queer. Perhaps it could be called a romantic friendship. Anyways, I want it. Even so, we did get a sapphic character in Sam, which I am very grateful for. It was fun, and I love seeing badass women. The scene where Alex absolutely destroys the naked assassin in a dark hotel room while fireworks are going off in the background and Tchaikovsky is playing is just mwah, cinema. The world it's filmed in is just so beautiful, it desperately makes me want to travel. It also gave me a new word. I have been saying afufabla way too much since watching this, and I will not stop. You cannot make me. Personally, the scenes with the godmother fell a little flat for me, though I totally believe that everyone in this universe is in love with Melanie Laurent, because why wouldn't they be? But I highly enjoyed the rest of the movie. It actually made me cry, like tears were running down my face. I absolutely loved the bloopers at the end, which were well needed because this made me cry. I don't think I've ever cried during a happy scene before, but I tend to cry when other people are crying, so it makes sense, I guess. In conclusion, this was a super fun movie, and I love women. The first time I saw this, I wasn't sure how I felt. In fact, I was rather critical of it. However, as per my Scream Cold Open ranking and reviews video, I went back and properly watched the Scream films I had missed before coming back and giving 6 another watch. And I can now say I love Scream 6. Only having one member of the original core cast in this one is kind of upsetting, but I do love the new cast of characters even if they are not as compelling as the originals. That being said, the original Scream is still by far my favorite, but for being a reboot, I think 5 and 6 are pretty good. I think there's a lot of overlap between this film and Scream 2, and even though I suspected the killer reveal, or at least one of the killers, about halfway through the film, I still think the reveal was better than Scream 2's. I did enjoy the final fight scenes quite a lot. There's some pretty cool shots in there, and as always, I appreciate the badass women. When Sam lets go of Tara? Wow! I love horror movies when the final girl gives no mercy to the killer. Now for some minor critical points. It seemed odd that the visions of Billy were present-day Skeet Ulrich, though of course I'm happy to see him, so I'm not really upset by it, but I think it would just make more sense if it was younger Billy, considering he died young. And I know it's possible. They got the technology for that. And now for the big stinker. I love movies where everyone lives. Of course I want everyone to live. But sometimes it's unrealistic. Dewey walked with a limp in every movie after the first. These characters seem to get worse injuries. I mean, Chad, Mindy, yet they are more or less fine. I'd like to see if there's any after effect of these injuries in Scream 7, but alas, it looks like it's not going to happen. But back to 6, they're sort of Stranger Thingsing their way through things. The new characters are guaranteed to be killed off, while the original ones continue to live relatively unscathed. Of course I love these characters, of course I want them to survive and be happy, but at least let their state reflect their injuries beyond the psychological trauma. Still, it's nothing I can't look past. I really hope another studio picks up 7 and rehires the actors with proper pay, though it's not looking likely. While I'd really like another film, I am happy with what we've been given.
I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon, but we have no choice.
There's a lot to appreciate in this film. Every aspect is quite impressive, from how it tells the story, to the special effects, to the sound design. That sound design. I'm glad I was able to catch this in a theater so the sound could reverberate in my skull the way it did. To state the obvious, Cillian Murphy is great in this. I would argue everyone else is too, but Murphy gives the most complicated performance and sells every moment of it. Speaking of the actors, I'm glad a lot of them are recognizable because there would have been no way I could have kept track of that many unknowns, which was already massively difficult as it was. Overall, it is very impressive and a lot to take in, but it demands attention and respect. I will probably need a few more watches to fully comprehend all the events because this movie covers a lot.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
I loved this movie, but I'm kind of sick of hearing about it, so I don't blame you if you are too. I've always loved Barbie. I grew up watching her movies, playing with the dolls, playing the computer games, and researching her history. She was always my toy of choice, and as a kid who didn't have any siblings and few friends, I spent a ton of time coming up with stories, changing their outfits, and posing them in my dream house. I used to say I didn't trust anyone who didn't like Barbie, because how could you not? She was more than just a doll to me, so naturally I would defend her as a toy and as an icon to those who spoke ill of her. In many ways, this movie was perfect for me. Not only did I love the actors, the colorful sets and outfits, and the goofy but self-aware humor of it all, but it reminded me of how playing with Barbies was used as a vessel for my emotions and my creativity. They helped me act out my problems, the ones I actually had, and the ones my anxious brain came up with. Through playing, I would find solutions, or at the very least become more comfortable with the situation. I remember the last time I tried to play with my Barbies. I was getting older, that sparkle was gone. I couldn't will myself to come up with a story. I changed their clothes one last time, then put them away. I teared up several times. I started to tear up both at watching the little girl grow up and watching her mother face rejection. I've been both. Not the mother part, but everything else Gloria describes, that's me, that's my life. This movie gets that. This was made for all the little girls who loved Barbie, put her down one day, then had to face the horrors of reality, of adulthood, of being a woman in this world. My only complaint is that I felt the film was a little long and drawn out towards the ending. Otherwise, I think it was super fun and really spoke to me.
Get out of the car.
You can't tell me what to do!
Get out of the freaking car!
Bottoms was so much better than I could have ever hoped. Raunchy comedies are either a hit or a miss for me, so I was a bit nervous thinking that I might not like it. But this was a hit. Definitely a hit. I laughed and smiled the whole way through. The forefront action and dialogue is funny, of course, but the background stuff just really makes the movie. Some of the most random, funniest shit is said or seen in the background. Of course, it did have the lies and misunderstanding trope and the best friends who are really different get into a fight, then later make up trope, but I think the writing was good enough for me to look past that. But I still think we should kill those tropes. There's so many great moments, from Jeff falling over after being lightly tapped by Josie's car, to Total Eclipse of the Heart playing while the girls egg and toilet paper Jeff's house. That was a lovely choice. Also, Jeff's name just being Jeff. His jersey just says Jeff. No last name. Only Jeff. Those bloopers and those extra takes at the end, they were so good. Really just made the movie. The soundtrack was good, and they included Complicated by Avril Lavigne, which was one of my favorite songs as a kid, so bonus points for that. It balances comedy with serious issues very well. I don't think that it ever comes off as offensive, even when darker subjects are tackled. And I think that's because it was written by people who understand and have first-hand experience with these things. The writing was just so good. And that final fight scene, put it in the Louvre. It was definitely worth the $5.99 plus tax I paid to rent it, and frankly, I'm regretting not buying it. Update, I actually bought it. Also, I'm a whore for that font. What is it, and where can I get some? I can definitely see myself rewatching this one for the years to come. It has all the makings of a comfort movie. It's been really nice to get these raunchy comedies lately for the girls, gays, and theys, especially ones made by people and for people my age. I'm looking forward to see what Emma Seligman, Rachel Sennett, and Iowa Debris will make in the future.
Oh.
Poor Things is a feast for the eyes. Visually, everything is just so beautiful, so interesting to look at. I loved this movie. I smiled through much of it. I loved Mark Ruffalo's character, Duncan Wedderburn, tripping up the stairs, spelling words wrong in the contract he drew up. Truly a marvelous character. Absolutely awful. I loved every minute he was on screen. Though really all the actors gave great performances and all the characters were compelling. My only issue with the film was the sexual content when Bella was mentally still very much a child and God trying to marry her off, but as he said, he would have had sex with her if he could. Even so, I think there's a lot that can be said about that, men trying to use her, taking advantage of her lack of knowledge and maturity, but it's still odd to watch this child in the body of a woman having a sexual awakening. Later though, I don't mind it. Once, she has come of age, if you will. Okay, and now for some slight spoilers. Personally, I was a little disappointed that she still wanted to marry Max, even after he owned up to his past failures. I think this is partially because, he expressed interest when she was still mentally a child, but even despite that growth in character, and those gorgeous big dark eyes, and his little curly mustache, I much more liked her with Toinette. Not just because Toinette is a socialist sapphic sex worker, an icon, but because Bella and her met after Bella had already mentally matured. But I do like their big family in the end, which luckily for me included Toinette. But besides that one complaint, I absolutely loved everything else about this film. The dance scene, the best I've ever seen. The sets and the painted skies were so beautiful, the costumes were gorgeous, and any use of CGI blended perfectly within the fantastical world of the film.
I don't like the way that guy looked at us, the alien.
How did he look?
Like we're doomed.
Maybe we are.
Last one, Asteroid City. Woo! This is it. My favorite of the year. Asteroid City is closer in style to The French Dispatch, being a story within a story within a story. I love the choices to make the real world look more like a play and keeping it in black and white, but the play itself is three-dimensional and full of color. I also just love the color that is used. However, I like Asteroid City's style better than The French Dispatch's. I think it might be because each layer was complex and they interacted with each other. The actors talk about the script and the characters both within the play and outside of it. I also love the family aspect present in Asteroid City. The Royal Tenenbaums and the Darjeeling Limited are a couple of my favorite Wes Anderson films. The family dynamics just really speak to me. Asteroid City's storyline following Augie, his children, and his father-in-law felt reminiscent of those. It's also just really cool being able to see Jason Schwartzman growing up through the years via Wes Anderson films. He started off playing a teenager in high school in Rushmore, and now over 20 years later, he's in his 40s playing an actor/father, or an actor playing a father. Speaking of actors, the newer additions to the Wes Anderson cast, including Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, and Tom Hanks, all fit in perfectly. And as always, it's a joy to see repeating cast members such as Jeffrey Wright, Tony Revolori, and Tilda Swinton. Of course, there's more on both sides, both new and returning, all wonderful, but I would be here forever if I were to list them all. Really, I just adored this entire movie, from the junior stargazers and their little antics, to Steve Carell's character selling everything imaginable via vending machines, to the kid who wrote and performed a song about the alien, causing the entire class to break out and dance. As with any Wes Anderson film, it just has a really good script, and the production value is just so perfectly Wes Anderson. Tell me what you thought of these movies, and how you would rank them. Once again, I want to add that even though I may have made some complaints about some movies, I loved all of them. Except Infinity Pool, I fucking hated that movie. But everything else, I liked. And most of them, I loved. Yeah, leave a comment, tell me what you thought of these movies, if you had a different opinion, if you had the same opinion. This is Vinny Editions of You. Thank you for watching.